Hello, Year 2. It is Thursday, the 4th of February, and we are here today to do our comprehension. Okay, just want to say a big well done to you all for doing such a super job with your comprehension so far. As we are getting through the comprehension book, the texts are getting really quite long and tricky now, and then we are getting lots and lots of questions to answer each session. And you are doing so well. Me and Mrs. Wood have been really impressed reading all of your answers and seeing how well you are doing with those comprehension questions. So a big well done to everybody, and I hope we keep that up because our reading is really coming on. Well done to you. A special well done. We've just got a couple of special mentions. First to Jamie. Your answers, Jamie, are always so super. You're always really spot on. You obviously understand what you're reading really well. So well done to Jamie. Well done to Phoebe, because I've had a lot of comprehension work from Phoebe recently, and it has been really super and lovely to see. So well done to Phoebe. And then also to Harry. Harry is trying so hard with his handwriting. And with your presentation, Harry, you're doing such a good job because it was something that we were really working on in school, and it's lovely to see that you're taking that on board and carried on working on that at home. So well done to you. Right then, for today, Thursday the 4th of February, our learning question says, can I answer questions on a fiction text? We haven't had a fiction text for a while, have we? We've been thinking lots recently about non-fiction texts, about factual texts, and they sometimes can be a little bit tricky to read because there's lots of difficult or scientific or subject-specific vocabulary for us to read and think about and understand. We've been doing a really super job, but today we are back to a fiction text. So it's a story today. We are going to practice our skills of retrieval, where we can skim and scan through the text and pick out the answer to the question using some keywords that we have been looking for. And often, remember, with retrieval questions, you can just pick it out and copy it down. We have got a little bit of inference to do today. So when we are making inferences, we are using the clues in the text, but what we have in the text are just clues. The exact answer isn't there for us to retrieve. We have to use what we already know and use the clues in the text to make an inference. Okay, and then we've also got a different couple of questions today. We've got one on the use of punctuation. See if you can tell your grown-up, give the video a pause, tell your grown-up what we mean by punctuation if you can remember, and see if you can remember any types of punctuation that we've used in school already in our literacy lessons. And we're going to have a little look at punctuation in a couple of minutes. The use of punctuation, and also today a question on the use of vocabulary. Now, vocabulary means words, the words that the author, the person writing the text, has chosen to use. And it's really important to make sure that we understand the vocabulary, and sometimes to show that we understand the vocabulary, we might be asked to pick out a certain word from the text. We're going to have a look at a question like that today. Okay, let's have a look at our text then. Found the front cover of the text. The text for today is called Flat Stanley, and in your Year 2 comprehension book, Flat Stanley is on page 24. And it tells us at the bottom of the text today that it is an extract. It's an extract from Flat Stanley by Jeff Brown. And what extract means is that it is a part of the text. So we aren't reading the whole story today. We've been given a section of the story, just a snippet, just a little part of it. Here's the front cover of the story. The front page of the book looks like this. And our first job is going to be today to predict. We're going to make some predictions, just like we have with some of our other texts. I want you to think about the title. I want you to have a look at how the title's being written. I want you to have a look at what you can see on the front cover of the page. And I want you to have a go, have a little chat with your grown-up about making predictions about the text. So this could be what you think the text is going to be about, who you think the text is going to be about, where you think the text might be set. There might be some clues on the front page about that. What you think may have happened to Stanley. So we're going to have a little think, a little couple of minutes to do some predictions, to do some guessing using the title and the front cover of the book. Okay. Now, I've only picked out a couple of tricky words for today because today is going to be a little bit different. What we're going to do today is have a little look at the text together, and I'm going to read the text to you because the text is quite long. There are quite a lot of long words in the text today. So we're going to go over in a minute some strategies of how we might be able to read some of those longer words. And I want you to be following or reading along with me as I read the text, and we can talk about some of those strategies and how we can read some of these longer words that we might come across today. Okay, first one is tricky word could. Next one is tricky word would. And this one is the word people. Well done if you remembered those. Those are some of the tricky words we've been thinking about. Now, got someone on my board who is called Chunky Monkey. And Chunky Monkey is hopefully going to help us to be able to read some of our longer, unfamiliar words today. Now, I know if we come across a word that's quite long, it's got quite a lot of letters, sometimes straight away we might say, I don't know what that word is. I can't read that word, it's too long, it's too big. And we're going to think today about how we can read some of those longer words more confidently. So, Chunky Monkey asks us some questions. He says, can you say the sounds for this part of the word? We're going to be doing something today called chunking, where we are going to look at the word in parts. We're not going to look at the whole word altogether. We're going to see if we can split it up into chunks or parts and see if we can say a part at a time. Okay? So you might in a word see a chunk of the word that you already know. You might not know the whole word, but you might recognise a chunk of it. Okay, that might help us with a longer word. So saying the chunks that we know, and then hopefully blending the chunks together. And there might be some parts that you don't need to sound out because you already recognise. Okay, and I found a nice quote which I liked, and it says, words are like cookies. If it's too big, bite off a chunk. And I thought that was a really nice little quote. So if you come across a word that's too big, we're going to think about it in chunks rather than the whole word altogether. And it tells us some things that we can look at the bottom. Okay? One of them says base words. My highlighter was on there here too. Let's try again. There we go. One of them is base words. And what we mean by a base word is a word before we add anything else to it. Okay? Sometimes we might take a word like happy and we could add something called a prefix to the start. So if the base word is happy, we might add un to the start to make unhappy. And that's a way that we can break a longer word down into chunks. Okay? We're going to have a think more today, though, about suffixes. Suffixes is where you add onto the end of the word. So if my base word is the word jump, I could add the suffix ing to make jumping. And that's another way of breaking the words into chunks. You might be able to find chunks that are digraphs that you know, two letters making one sound. You might be able to find chunks that are consonant clusters, which is what we call our blends. You might spot the blends and break it up that way. And then we're just going to have a quick chat as well about something called syllables. Okay, we're going to have a chat about something called syllables. Now, if we think about a word like the word elephant, okay, we can break the word elephant into something called syllables. And I'm going to clap the word elephant, elephant. And those, the parts of the word are the syllables. So when we come across a long word today, we might be able to break it up in syllables. You might be able to spot the syllables in your name. Maybe you would like to give the video a pause. Maybe your grown-up could give you a word with lots of syllables and see if you can clap it to break it up. Just like the word banana, we would break into banana. Or watermelon, we would break up into watermelon. Watermelon. Okay, that's another thing that's going to help us with our longer words today. Okay, so I've got this word here. You might know that word already because it is made up of two parts that we already know. Okay, so this part, rather than me trying to sound out the whole word, and then trying to piece them together, there's a lot of sounds there. What you might be able to do is spot that you could split it into chunks. Okay, so you might already know, because that's only a 3-letter word, a CVC word, you might already know that that's bed. So you've got bed, you recognise that chunk, room, bedroom. Put the chunks together at the end. Okay, this is a word we're going to come across in our text today. Okay, so it's bull. Bull. So that sounds like one syllable. Bull. In. Tin. Bulletin. Bulletin. Okay, so that's a way that you can think about chunking the word. If you've sounded out part of the word, say that chunk, then move on to the next part, say that chunk, and then see if you can put the chunks together. So I did bull, in, tin, bulletin. You can hear the syllables, bulletin. Okay, one more of those. Goodness, look how long this word is. There was no way we could start and sound all of those letters out and then remember. Now I've got a suffix on the end. This suffix is ness, like happiness. Okay, so I recognise this chunk altogether. It's ness. Okay, I recognise I've got a split digraph there. So I've got pol, polite, ness. Okay, politeness. Put the chunks all together. Right. We are going to have some words today where we have got these suffixes then. So we've already had ness. We're going to have some words with ing, some words with ed, some words with ly, and some words with full. And we can use those to help us with our text today. We can use those, spot those suffixes, because if you've added a suffix to a word, it's probably going to be a longer word. Okay, so see, when we're reading them, or you may want to even pause the video now and see if you can spot some words with those suffixes and have a go at reading them. Okay. We've also got some different punctuation. Now, you might have talked about punctuation with your grown-up. So full stops, we know there's going to be lots of full stops at the end of sentences. You might have remembered question marks. We haven't got any question marks today, but we have got some of these. Can you remember what this punctuation is called? It's an exclamation mark, isn't it? You tell your grown-up when we might use an exclamation mark. We might use one if we are excited. If we're excited and we might be talking a little bit loud because we're excited, or because we're shouting, or because we're grumpy or a little bit cross. Okay, so we've got exclamation marks today. And then we've also got this mark, which can sometimes look like this as well. And they are called inverted commas. Okay, those are called inverted commas, or we can sometimes call them speech marks. Okay, speech marks. The speech marks show when a character in the story is talking. Right, let's get on to our text. I've got it in front of me. We're going to have a little read. Can you get it in front of you? Remember page 24. Get it in front of you and we'll have a little read. I'll read, you follow. So it says, breakfast was ready. We've got EA making an F sound there. Breakfast was ready. Oh, same in breakfast, look. And we've got these punctuation marks. We've got these speech marks. So somebody is talking now. I will go wake the boys. Mrs. Lamb Chop. Silent B in the word lamb. Mrs. Lamb Chop said to her husband, George Lamb Chop. Just then, their younger Got that OU making the sound like we had yesterday. Just then their younger son Arthur called from the bedroom. He shared the air sound with his brother Stanley. Hey, come and look. Hey, you see our punctuation marks there. You see those exclamations. You see if you can read that sentence to your grown up. Think about the punctuation. You have to be excited. He's shouting. He wants them to come and look at something. Hey, come and look. Hey, shouting. Mr. and Mrs. Lamchop were both very much in favour of politeness and careful speech. Now let's think about that part. I think that was a tricky sentence. Mr. and Mrs. Lamchop were both very much in favour of politeness and careful speech. So if they are in favour of something, it means that they want it and they like it. So if they're in favour of politeness and careful speech, they want people to speak to them, especially their boys, politely and carefully. Now, if we look back at what Arthur's just said, hey, come and look, hey, said hey. Now, hey is what we might call a bit of a slang word, okay? What does hey mean, do you think? It's not really, it's a word that we might use, but maybe it's not what Mr. and Mrs. Lamchop think is maybe a polite or a careful way of speaking. We've got some more speech marks now, so somebody else is talking. Hay is for horses, Arthur, not people, Mr. Lamchop said as they entered the bedroom. Try to remember that. Now, Arthur said hay, which is spelt like this, hay, like that. Mr. Lamchop said hay, spelt Hay, like the hay that horses eat, and that might be important for one of our questions today. Excuse me, Arthur said, but look. He pointed to Stanley's bed. Across it lay this is a long word, I'm going to try to break it into chunks. Enormous. Oh, there's our bulletin word, enormous bulletin board that Mr. Lamchop had given the boys a Christmas ago so they could pin up pictures and messages and maps. So the boys have got a board in their bedroom that they can pin things up to. Okay. It had fallen during the night on top of Stanley. But Stanley was not hurt. In fact, he would still have been, quite a long word there, I can see ing on the end, sleeping. So in fact, he would still have been sleeping if he had not been woken by his brother's shouts. More inverted commas, more speech marks now, somebody else is talking. What's going on here? He called out. Oh, it's quite a long word, I can see. Cheerfully. What's going on here? He called out cheerfully from beneath the enormous board. Mr. and Mrs. Lamchop hurried to lift it from the bed. Heavens! See the exclamation mark there? Heavens, said Mrs. Lamchop. Gosh, said Arthur. Stanley's flat. As a pancake, said Mr. Lamchop. Tell your grown-up, give it a pause a minute, tell your grown-up what's happened to Stanley. Can you remember? Can you show a good understanding what happened to Stanley? So there was a board on his wall, the board that they pinned things down to, and in the night it's fallen on top of Stanley and squashed him flat. I wonder if any of you predicted something like that when you wondered what had happened to Stanley at the start. Okay, so we're going to think about our questions then now. I'm going to show you under the visualizer the questions and we're going to have a little chat about them. Now, this first one is at what time of the day is the text set? How do you know? Now, this is an inference question. You've got to use some of the clues in the text to work out what time of day it is. It doesn't say it was night time. It doesn't say it was lunchtime. It doesn't tell you the time of day, but it does give you some clues for you to work it out. Make sure you answer that question in two parts. Make sure you answer at what time of day, and then how do you know? What time of day? You know because you've used a certain clue in the text. So you might need to use the word because in that one. So if you think it was bedtime, you would say bedtime because, and then you would quote me something that's happened, some evidence from the text. Number 2, is Stanley older or younger than Arthur? So you need to have a little look. And it does give us the word younger, doesn't it? I remember reading the word younger, but read that sentence once you've found it really carefully to work out if Stanley is older and Arthur is younger, or if Stanley is younger and Arthur is older. Read that sentence with the word younger in very carefully. Okay. This is the one with our punctuation in there. So it says, why do you think the author uses exclamation marks when Arthur says, hey, come and look, hey? And you can see we've got those speech marks, those inverted commas to show that that came from the text. Okay. Why do you think the authors used exclamation marks? Have a think about what's happened. Have a think about how Arthur might be feeling and how Arthur would be speaking and why. Okay. This one we did think about a little bit, and I think this one's quite a tricky one to explain. So we're looking forward to see what answers you come up with for this one. Why does Mr. Lambchop tell Arthur, and again we've got quotes from the text with those inverted commas, those speech marks, hay is for horses. Why does Mr. Lambchop tell Arthur hay is for horses? So go back and find that part, have a little reread about that paragraph and see if you can work out using what we've talked about why he might have told us that. Okay, question 5 is a retrieval question. Question 5 says, what woke Stanley up? That's a retrieval question. Go to the part of the text where you know Stanley woke up and reread the few sentences around it. And our final one, question 6, is copy a word. It's a copy a word question. Copy a word from the text that shows Stanley isn't worried about being under the board. So go to the part of the text where they find Stanley under the board, have a little read of the sentences around that part, and there should be a word that shows you that Stanley isn't worried. And all you need to do is write down that one word, not the whole sentence. Copy a word. Copy a word from the text that shows Stanley isn't worried. So we know that one's going to be in the part of the text where they find him under the board. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that one today. It's a little bit of a different one. I'd not heard of the story before, but I think I would quite like to find out what happens to Stanley. So maybe we might have to come across that text. We might have to find it. Maybe we could read it when we're back in school. Okay, so Flat Stanley, have a little go at your questions, send them over to us, and then we'll think about what challenge we've got today. Okay, so the challenge says, can you create your own story opening where someone wakes up and something strange has happened? Okay, so Arthur's woken up and something strange has happened. Stanley has been flattened, hasn't he, under the board. So see if you could have a little think. You could maybe come up with a character in the story who wakes up and something strange has happened in their bedroom. Maybe you could write a few sentences, like a little extract, the opening of a story about what happened that's strange when your character wakes up. Okay, we would love to see a little bit of writing from you. Keep working really, really hard. We can't wait to see what you come up with today. Thank you, year two. Bye bye.